invalidate it and say, no, we're just going to keep things nice and stable. And we're just going to let people prosper more and more. We're going to let a rising tide of prosperity, because that's what production brings. Supply and demand. Supply is production, and demand is how much we're using. You understand how this would set the people free? What is freedom? That's freedom. That's liberation. So I just want everybody to understand, come out of Babylon, because I'm just as human as everybody else. I get it. I'm really uncomfortable in my own skin sometimes, especially in this cold weather. I can't warm up. And, I wish it was a perfect 79, with a nice, gentle, warm breeze blowing, all the time, just like everybody else. And that'll come someday. There's going to be an end to all the things that annoy you. It's written that even the sun in this renewed world will not ever be too bright. Can you imagine? I mean, I have literally driven down the driveway and turned east, and you know what? I feel assaulted by the sun, because it just, boom, it's like I'm squinting, and it's annoying. You can't see a damn thing. And you've got to close your visor and put your sunglasses on maybe, but it's annoying. It's too bright. So it's written that that's all going to be changed to where it's going to be perfect 24/7, just the right lighting. Temperature, I don't remember anything mentioned too much about temperature, but you got to use your imagination. And that's where I would go to. It's the book of John. Toward the end of the book of John, it's written in there, if everything Jesus taught was written down, he supposed the whole world couldn't contain the books that would be written. So obviously God has given us all this latitude, all this room to ponder. It's incredible, that we can wonder about how good is God, and in how many different ways. And he wants us to do that. He's encouraging us to do that. It's so beautiful that this is an eternal tapestry, that we're a part of something that goes on forever. I mean, he loves us, and he's all powerful, and we're safe. Death can't hurt us. That's where I would read Romans chapter 8 and read about, how nothing can separate us from the love of God. Not height nor depth, nor angels nor demons, nor life or death. I mean, basically, it says it a lot more poetically than that, but I mean, it's just wonderful to know that we really are safe, that nothing, once we have given ourselves to him, we're always accepted, and he snatches us from the flames. It's so beautiful, but that's the love the Father has for us and is capable of doing, and wants to do, longs to do, and that's what we got to know, that we're safe in his hands. And so I hope that's uplifting to people, to know that you really are loved, no matter what feeling you get from other people, what feeling you get from the world, but understand the duress they're all under. I always say that if you need slack, offer slack. And so that's what I try to do. That's why I'm opposed to capital punishment. I think, good God, they could frame me, and cut my head off, some other method of killing me or whatever, put me on death row. I mean, doesn't that sound wonderful? But just the idea that they could make a mistake, 1 in a million, is too much for me. Okay, it's not okay, and we got to understand the motives and all that crap. I mean, it's just too much. Remember, Paul, the Apostle Paul, that wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. He was the worst enemy of Jesus. He was out there persecuting Christians, having them executed. I mean, this guy was literally God's worst enemy, but Paul believed he was God's best enemy. That's the irony. It's just, I guess it tells us how wrong we can be and believe we're right. But Paul was doing this, and he had a turnaround. That's called the conversion of Paul, when an angel of the Lord, or the Lord himself purportedly, comes down, has a little talk with Paul in this ball of light that blinds him and his and the guys that were with Paul. And so he had a change of heart. And so anyhow, it's all very cosmic. And hey, Moses killed a guy, right? The mean slave driver that was beating his slave. And so murder is a forgivable thing. It's the thing, harboring murder and not knowing it. That is a problem. You see, you don't want to walk around being a murderer. You want a nice, pure heart. I mean, if you ever kill a man in self-defense or in defending another, you want to make sure that, you know, you didn't want to do that. You took no delight in it. And in fact, it was reprehensible and it was a terrible thing for you to have to do, like Moses felt. And anybody that's, I mean, look how King David felt with putting Uriah the Hittite, you know, Bathsheba's husband, on the front lines, knowing he was very diabolical. And David was very sorrowful when he came to his senses and realized what he had done. He lamented intensely for a long time. I mean, he was miserable. He could not regain any joy. His guilt was so powerful. And that's how a lot of guys feel that have killed somebody. I mean, it's just like, what if you innocently ran over a pedestrian? You're going to remember that the rest of your life. You're the last guy in the world that's ever going to do that. So the point is that, you know, all these guys that you know, say that we shouldn't be forgiving one another, you know, they're wrong. We do need to forgive. If we want forgiveness, we need to offer forgiveness. It is written that that those that have shown mercy, I believe that Jesus said this, will be shown mercy. And so, you know, if you want slack, offer slack. I need slack, so I've got to offer slack. And it feels like a good thing. You know, it helps me escape really getting into dark places in my life. You know, is just knowing that God's grace is sufficient for me. And there's another line from the Bible. I mean, you know, I suggest everybody read the book. Read the book. It's too profound to believe it was made by a gaggle of evil guys that had this intention of extracting 10% of your income. I mean, it's not there. It's impossible. The writings are far too profound. Read the Gospels, you know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You know, read at least those things. A lot of people think John is the best book to start. That's the last of the 4 Gospels, but hey, you know, start where thou wilt, you know, whatever. But you know, Revelations is pretty far out, man. You get into that stuff and you start feeling like you're living in that time. And quite frankly, I think we are. And the book of Daniel is a short book, very easy read, very interesting. The King Nebuchadnezzar thing with where Daniel wouldn't bow down, and the fiery furnace that, you know, God pulled him out of with the angels and his friends, and you know, in the lion's den. It's you know, fascinating stories that have been passed on for thousands of years. But you know, that this is what's coming down. This is a last days book. Also, it is written. The book of Daniel was set aside to be understood in the last days. That's what makes it so intriguing. There's all these references to the number 4, and then you look at, you know, President Obama being number 44. There's this reference to this raiser of taxes. You know, these kings of the north and the south, and this one, you know, that's described as a leopard. You know, I think of Obama, you know, and I think, man, the guy even looks like a leopard. He was born under the sign of Leo. I mean, the cat. It's fascinating stuff, folks. And then this newest pope, who the Seventh-day Adventists have always called the Antichrist, which most people don't understand. Words tend to, I don't call it evolve, but devolve. I guess they can evolve. The word nice used to mean stupid. So, but, you know, we got to understand that the anti is really a substitute. That's all it really meant was you know, a substitute. So if you look at it like that, it's a lot different from seeing anti as being against necessarily. So to call the Pope the Antichrist, you could see where that might have some merit in saying, well, yeah, that kind of even makes sense, because who is supposed to be the figurehead of the Christian church? The Pope. So, you know, the idea that this is the Antichrist, and now this Pope seems to be a decent guy. Now this guy suddenly, I'm even saying, you know, wow, champion of the poor. I mean, that's my shtick, you know. Even Adam Smith, man, you know, this guy was strictly an economist. The guy, he devoted his life to the study of facts and figures, numbers. I mean, you know, reading The Wealth of Nations is a tedious process. But, you know, to find those little tidbits, those excerpts, you know, is just invaluable. And I'm about to reread my book. I had one marked out with the excerpts, but it got misplaced. And So I've got to reread it and mark out those. But they're precious excerpts. He was a big champion of the poor. Jesus was a champion of the poor. The God of the Bible is champion of the poor. I'm pretty sure all the major faiths, all the Judaism, the Islamic religion, I mean, all these people are champions of the poor. Righteous people all over the world that never even heard the word religion or heard of any of these religions are champions of the poor. It's an instinct. It's a decision you make to be a champion of the poor. But now Obama, I mean, you know, I actually voted for Obama the first time around. I was so, you know, I mean, hell, the American people would have elected Mickey Mouse, we all know, after George Bush, you know, the epitome of the village idiot. You know, I mean, you've got to look up village idiot and see, you know, baby Bush's face there. I mean, sorry, George. I know you said to be a nice guy, and we'd probably, you know, we could be friends maybe, I suppose. I don't know, you know. But you'd have to, you know, be honest with me and tell me if you had any involvement in 9/11, you knew anything was coming or anything like that. So I don't know, you know, but, you know, judging and condemning, that's for God. I don't have that kind of wisdom. No human being does. Thank God we don't. I don't want to. I mean, but, you know, if I was called on, if I was, you know, wow, he did this, he knew. I mean, it could be you got to send some people to hell, that we might have to, as humans, send people to hell, be judges. That's pretty intense. I'm going to wrap it up now, but, you know, be a champion of the poor. And Obama is sounding like that. That was the point I was making with Obama. This guy is turned out, you know, but, you know, when he supported the banking bailout of '08, dude, on record, you know what I mean? You know, but both choices did it too. McCain did it too. You know, so we had no choice. American people, though, they knew the polls, and these people watched the polls meticulously. They knew over 90% of the American people were opposed to that banking takeover. These people knew what they were doing. They're scammers. It was talk about the sting. Oh, mama, our money was destroyed then. We didn't need any more inflation past that point. Once they set that in stone, they validated that, it was just going to be a long, simmering trickle down of misery and suffering for the people under totally debased currency, just a staggering, you know, just a piece of crap, you know, economy where they walk that tightrope of a critical mass of people that are benefiting from the system, and you know, and that's it, and people go along their merry ways, and they say, you know, sorry, wouldn't want to be you, sorry about you, you got ripped off, but, you know, hey, I'm doing good, and, you know, maybe there's a way for you to get back onto this side. I mean, we need the critical mass to come to the side of light and truth and right. And you know what? The single solitary demand I would have is sound currency. We would eventually, gradually have freedom and liberty through a rising tide of prosperity. This is the only way to set the captives free. Whereby studies have been shown we should be working about 5 hours a week now. Could you imagine how you wouldn't miss it for the world? We'd be jonesing, no pun intended, for, you know, things to, I say that because I'm a big Alex Jones fan, but, you know, no pun intended, you know, we'd be jonesing to find, you know, fun things to do with our time. You know, I mean, you could only imagine how you'd like to spend eternity, you know? I mean, I imagine, you know, maybe a nice cafe greenhouse on the coast, on the Central California coast, maybe around Pescadero area, Davenport maybe, you know. Beautiful foliated cafe, the aroma of coffee and pastries and incense maybe, nothing too overpowering. And, you know, maybe a cut flower shop, you know, where, you know, greenhouse. You could go in and help yourself, you know, it's free with a cup of coffee. You know, I mean, we can all have our dreams, and that's just one of, you know, dozens of dreams I've got, how I could spend my life. But I've got a very short time, and so I've got to be happy today. Because another thing I always say is that eternity is comprised of but a series of moments, just a continual, consecutive series of moments, a never-ending series of moments. That's all we've got.